The last postures in this course are going to be combination postures, or poses that blend some of these categories. The first one is scorpion pose, which is a blend of an arm balance and a back bend. I'm going to walk you through how to enter scorpion pose from Pincha Mayurasana, or forearm stand. So obviously in this pose you have to have practiced forearm stand beforehand and be stable in it before you're going to add other things to it, other leg variations, etc. So let me get on the mat and talk you through how I think about this and what I do. So obviously the first part is getting your base stable in Pincha Mayurasana. And of course, in Pincha Mayurasana, the pose itself, we keep the body more vertical and straight. However it is that you get up there. Whoops. But in scorpion pose, here's what I'm gonna think. First, I'm gonna bend my legs. That's all that happened. Toes together, I'm gonna open my knees to make it easier for me to go lower because it's less of a direct stretch in my quads. Then I'm actually gonna lift my gaze towards my hands, let my back start to arch. My feet are gonna come towards my head because of that. Keep opening the knees, and eventually you hit compression in your maximum. And then to come up, push into your arms, pulling through your core. And then you can move on wherever you want to go from there. So to distribute the weight well in this pose, because some of it is going to be going backwards now, right? From that straight line, you're bringing your feet down behind you. To prevent toppling over backwards into forearm wheel, maybe unintentionally, you counter that weight going this way by bringing your chest and your heart backwards this way. You could also try to get up into this one leg at a time, like instead of finding full Pincha Mayurasana first, you might be able to come up with one leg bent, get your bearings, and then get the other leg to meet it. That might be easier for you. Let me show you what that might look like. So I might start somewhere here with the leg bent already, and then shift forward and try to find like a half scorpion pose first. Shifting forward, the leg is already bent here, this one. I would just need to get the front leg to meet it, right? So I would bend it, keep pushing into my arms, goes back to meet it. My feet are just kind of separate right now, and that's fine, but I have more control if I can touch them. I know where they are together, knees are opening. I'm looking at the mat right now, but I can bring my gaze forward. To make this more of a back bend. Push into the arms, I could come down one leg at a time too. It's definitely a challenging one, and the best I can say is when you're actually trying to get into it, you've got to still focus on your base and your arms and pushing into the arms, because if you have any wobbles or wiggles, then your hands and your arms are going to be what have to correct that. And you could see that I could balance in stages of that pose where I was almost in it, but then to really get into the back extension part of it, the back bend, I had to look forward more, to extend more in my upper back, to actually create more of this ring-like shape. And don't have the goal of touching your head with your feet. It depends on your back extension, like we talked about in the back bend section. Depends on your hip extension too. And then again, to get out of this in a way that's more mindful, you push into your arms. You push into your forearms, and then that's going to translate up into your hips. Your hips are going to start to rise up again, and then you pull in your core. You got to pull in through your abdomen, and then you can come back down one foot at a time or both feet at the same time. Another really advanced posture, which is a blend of an arm balance and a back bend again, is called Kapinjalasana. This is one of the hardest poses I've come across in its full version, in one of its versions, I should say, rather. And in the version I'm talking about, it's like side plank plus dancer. It's like you're doing dancer pose, holding one foot overhead like that, but then you're in side plank on the other side. Really, really challenging, but there are ways of playing with and practicing Kapinjalasana with other binds. And before you even got into this pose, you would have needed to workshop those binds. Which ones are possible for you right now? Or ultimately, do you need a strap or not? So in dancer pose and in pigeon pose with the binds, one of the possible binds was having the leg behind you and just reaching back like this into extension and some internal rotation. That's one way we could start playing with a bind in Kapinjalasana, or this kind of back bend side plank thing. So let me show you what this would look like first. So of course, side plank is plank. You're just tipped over onto your side. And there are many ways to do this pose in and of itself. And it's challenging. Kapinjalasana involves the top leg coming up and bending back, and you bind behind with it. And so here I'm reaching back with my top arm, searching for my foot and extending back. Basically the same way I did here, except now the rest of my body is in side plank. So it's a very strong pose, but it's a very open pose at the same time, which adds to that physical challenge. Before doing this pose, I would have done some combination of movements that were in the arm balance class and in the back bend class, because it's a combination of both things. If you wanted to start playing with this, you could start in plank and then shift into side plank, right? Whatever side plank you are comfortable with. You could even practice this on your knee, the bottom knee, I suppose, just to get, this idea of the top leg coming back behind you. That might be one place to start, like an easier place. And then this top leg would come up, bend behind you. You would reach back with the top arm and attempt to connect with your foot. And if you needed a strap, you would have to lasso your foot with the strap while you were there and open back. So if you wanted to try that in actual plank, side plank, shifting over, got to lift the top leg a little bit, bend it back. I'm really pushing into my bottom arm, and it helps me ground that back foot more. I can connect. It's a combination of pushing strongly in the bottom arm and opening with the top arm. To release, coming back into plank, hand down, foot down, and then I would take a break before workshopping the other side. The uber challenging version of this is exactly that, except you're binding overhead with that top leg. And it's that you're balancing all the while in Vashisthasana, side plank, and then you have to do that maneuver where you get your top foot and lift your elbow up, move your shoulder blade to a different position, and stay balanced, right? A strap can be really helpful even if you can do that bind. Even if you can do this and grab your foot and it's easy, when you're workshopping that bind in side plank, you might want to start out with more wiggle room. I could practice this bind in a similar orientation by keeping the bottom knee down again, kind of turning this foot out so I can more easily stack my hips comfortably. I could have my strap at the ready. And then I could practice balancing here, lassoing that foot, which is the second challenge after you're balanced, right? And then you've got it. You bring that foot behind you. And then from here, this is what we did before, right? If you wanted to come into the bind, you would have to go through that same process. You'd have to bend your arm, really shorten this space, okay? And then work on pointing your elbow up. And it's gonna pull your foot back a lot more too. So it's a huge back bend and shoulder opener for my top side, right? And imagine that I'm in side plank doing this. And then of course to release, you could simply let go of your foot, or if you had the strap, you might be able to rewind the bind, let go of the strap or your foot and come down. So let me do this for you on the other side. And it's a really difficult pose, so I'm not gonna talk while I do it because I really have to focus. But I just want you to be able to see really what has to happen if you're gonna do this version in side plank. I'm actually bending the back knee to make this easier. Actually doing it, I find it easier to grab hold of my foot if I'm not using a strap, if I bend my leg, my bottom leg before I come up. I think that's just because of my proportions and I have a longer torso. It is an intense posture, but again, this is what these are, and it's a way to really challenge your mind and your physical stamina and your ability to stay connected with your breathing in something like that. I personally, just like I prefer doing the bind overhead with the strap, because it just feels better in my back, I would actually opt personally to do Kapinjalasana, arm overhead with a strap too. It makes it feel a lot more easeful for me to get there. Side plank, pushing into that arm, trying to grab the floor with my back foot as best as possible. I actually like to angle my hand out, I'm noticing a little bit towards the outside. Okay, so I would find side plank wherever I was. Then I could grab my strap with the loop, bend my bottom leg just to make it easier to lasso. Lassoed, pushing into the bottom arm, binding overhead. Sliding the hand down the strap, releasing, coming forward, moving on. So that is Kapinjalasana. I would start by practicing this version, by reaching back for the outer ankle. Vijnanitrasana is a blend, you could see it as a blend of a lot of different things. It's got compass pose going on in the top arm and leg. It's the same shape as compass, but you're in like a side plank position again. Because the front leg is straight and the back leg is straight, it also has like a splits feeling to it. So you really need to, before you workshop Vijnanitrasana, opening up through the hamstrings and the adductors, the groin, the shoulders and the side body, same things you would have done for compass pose. This is one you could also practice at first on your knee, on your bottom knee, to take away some of the stability work and the balance work. If you're not familiar with what Vijnanitrasana looks like, I'm gonna show you. So in full Vijnanitrasana, this leg would be extended back, behind, kind of like side angle. Exactly like side angle, right? But just to show you how you can workshop the upper body, you can start down here on the back knee. And then we would practice basically compass pose in the upper body. So the bottom hand stays grounded on the floor. You might be able to put it on a block too, but it's helpful if you can get it snug underneath your leg somewhat, like I'm cupping my heel with my right hand right now, really pushing down. And then just like compass pose, this arm would have to make a connection with this foot. What I do is I reach down for my big toe. I don't tend to do that because I don't like to crank just on one place, but here I find it more simple to just grab my big toe with my peace fingers. Continuing to push down with that bottom arm, I would lift this foot up just like I did in Compass. And then you gotta pull your chest through. And I'm in Compass now, but it feels really different because I'm not sitting on the floor. I'm pushing into that bottom arm. It's a super side stretch. And imagine my back leg is straight behind me. That's Vijmamitrasana. This could be like Ardha, half Vijmamitrasana. To get out, I would look down, help my foot down, release my arm. And then if I was up here, I would end up in this like side angle thing, right? You could move up and move on into other active poses, but it might feel good to come out, to come down onto the floor. Again, the strap can be super, super helpful for things like this. So you could workshop down here on your back knee, lasso the foot with the strap instead of holding onto your big toe. Just hold onto the strap instead. And then you could play, right, in your version of Compass pose here. And you can really feel how poses are different, even if it's the same shape, when you flip the pose around and do it in different angles. And of course, there's a lot of strength work happening on the bottom arm, pushing into the floor, that isn't happening in Compass when we're just sitting down, right? So the full-blown version of Vijmamitrasana is doing this with the back leg in a Parsvottanasana position, like a side angle position. But the whole thing, you can see how there's like side plank elements involved and Compass pose involved and like splits involved. So you gotta go slowly and at your own pace. The easiest way to get into the first krama or the setup position is going to be from side angle with your hand down on the floor. So coming down here like this, right? This is gonna be your first setup position for playing with Vijmamitrasana. The back leg is up, foot is grounded. You would get this hand to cup the heel behind you, really connecting strong with the floor there, just like side plank. And then I would do that exact same thing I just did, grabbing this foot and opening it into Compass pose. And then I would be in full Vijmamitrasana. Down, setting my foot down. I have to move slow and mindfully so I don't just flop somewhere where I'm not sure where it's gonna end up. Because this has been bent so strongly and it's really compressed during that pose, I would actually prefer something where I get to extend it out behind me, maybe coming down onto my belly or a Sphinx pose, just to really relieve that front hip at least. And of course, you can do that full pose with the strap. Doesn't make it any less of a full pose, right? You can also see how that pose, Vijmamitrasana, has a lot of similar things going on in terms of its shape to Bird of Paradise, which is sort of the same shape, just stood up and the arms are bound somewhat different. So the flexibility class focused around Bird of Paradise could even help you prepare more fully for a similarly strong pose like Vijmamitrasana. A bonus pose I would like to give you is one that I forgot to incorporate into the arm balance section, which is 8 angle pose or Astavakrasana. I just literally forgot that because the flow in the arm balance section went so well for me. I just forgot this one, but I would like to teach it to you. It's really like it's a true arm balance and it's an asymmetrical arm balance. I mentioned it in the arm balance section because we did this. We created a shelf, which is one of the first things you're gonna have to do in preparation for 8 angle pose. So in 8 angle pose, when you are in it, your legs are gonna be in like a crossed figure 8 pattern, and they're gonna shoot off to one side. So you have to do the pose twice so that you can do the left and the right sides. So you would start by taking one leg up and creating a shelf for it, like we did in the arm balance class, because you can do this for Bhuja Pidasana and Titipasana as well, this kind of shelf idea. You're gonna lean forward like we did in the class, really push yourself up, and maybe you can take flight like we practiced there. But then in 8 angle pose, this ankle, this front ankle, is actually going to come around and hook around this ankle and make a connection. Being here, leaning forward, lifting up, I can hook them together, and then I'm gonna bend my arms. This elbow is actually gonna come into my hips. I just find it much easier for me to make this shelf. I would make a shelf, tip forward, extend my legs out, gonna come low, and then I'm in 8 angle pose. To come up, push into my arms, and I just plop down, to be honest with you. As I extend the legs out to one side, the leg that is shelved, this one, it might start up pretty high on my arm, but when I extend them out this way, this leg actually slides down more towards my elbow, actually. You'll feel it kind of slide down so that you have more room to extend your legs out. Going through the kramas, you could sit like this with one leg straight, one leg bent, work on shelving this leg. And you could also do this with blocks. You could put the blocks under your hands like we played with in the class, leaning forward, maybe pressing up. If you can do that, then you're in good shape to be moving into 8 angle pose, if you can lean forward and lift up like this. So this could be Krama 1, let's say, with the hands down. And then the next stage would be maybe lifting the leg, you could practice hooking the feet together, right? So they create a ring around this arm. But unless I bend my arms and come forward, I'm not gonna go anywhere different. I'm just gonna be stuck there hovering. Okay, I would have to bend my arms. That leg has to slide down my arm a little bit to create more space. And there's just like in side crow, there's a twist happening. There's a big twist happening in your back, and it's a lot of core work at the same time. So this concludes the content of the course, and I hope that you've seen throughout all of the sections that really advanced poses are individual and it all depends on you and your body. These poses are ways for you to build your relationship with your body and with your inner self and with those inner sensations. And I hope that you approach all of these with some humor and just have fun with them. The last thing I would like to offer to you is a short practice which is advanced in a different way, just to get you thinking more about the concept of what advanced means, especially in yoga. So I hope that you enjoy that class as a thought experiment. And thank you so much for joining me for this advanced asana course.